Hey, everybody, I'm Christina Mueller. Welcome to my podcast. I'm here with Mike Lanham today, and he is an owner and chef at Anomaly restaurant in San Francisco. And if you've never been to Anomaly, first of all, it's down the street from where I used to live on Sutter, which is crazy. I think 20 years ago, it was a grocery store or a corner store, and then it was a yoga studio, and now it's a restaurant, which you've done an amazing job remaking the interior to be so welcoming and warm and lovely. Mike, I don't really know anything about your background. I'm really curious to just dig in a little bit on like sort of your path to this incredible restaurant. Where did you start your culinary journey? Where did you start as an individual? Like, who are your parents?
Yeah, so I grew up in Georgia. Uh, my parents are Mary and Dale. I grew up about an hour north of Atlanta.
Stone
And
Mountain? That's all I know.
yeah. Well, not quite like south of Stone Mountain, north of Atlanta. Also based on traffic, Stone Mountain can be an hour closer or further away because Atlanta is special like that.
Well, you don't
Uh,
have any accent.
yeah, well, my parents they're unique people. I look up to them a lot. They did a lot of things for us. One thing they did for us is made really sure, uh, at least with me, against my best efforts, I got a very good education. And one of the things they tried to, teach me is like how like I can speak colloquially, but I can also speak with a very neutral accent because, they had hopes that one day I might do international business or something big and important, and that sometimes people look at a Southern accent as points against.
Mm.
I don't. Um, we have words other parts of the country don't even have, um, which
Thankfully.
I look at as a sign of intelligence. But at any rate, yeah. So you know, but yeah, that's why and that's where.
Did they
They
cook? Like, were they like, how did you?
No, none of us cooked.
None.
So I a crazy thing. I mean, my mom cooked dinner occasionally, but my parents launched a software company out of our basement when I was super young. Um, and the first one did not work very well at all. And my dad worked his tail off to get us out of that in a financially reasonable position.
Yeah.
Both my parents went to work for other people for a little while, and then my dad launched it again, and my mom supported the family with her job, and it blew up, and now they have a software company that does business in many, many countries, and they're really successful within their little slice of the ERP business, and it's really cool. It's a hell of a model for like a successful marriage and success in business. So
And so naturally, you chose
yeah,
the to skate along in life and chose the easy path of running your own restaurant.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things. I think subconsciously, a little bit of it is that there was a really easy path laid out for me, and I think uh at about 18 or 19, I had like a little bit of an existential crisis. I'm like, am I just going to go to college, get a middling degree, and then, you know, enjoy my parents' accomplishments and kind of be the reason Rome fell? Or am I going to go out and like be a real person and do real things uh, where I prove that I have worth as a person, and I may have taken that a little bit too far. uh, but I had to move 2,500 miles away and get into restaurants.
So how did
But
you get into restaurants? I mean, that can't have been like, here's step one and they encourage, maybe they did. Maybe they said, oh, you should definitely go into restaurants, but maybe they said, oh, you should go into software.
yeah, no. So I was good at school, and I probably would have been a very good software engineer, but um I don't know. It wasn't the thing for me. I have a furious amount of ADD. I don't know how all of it is housed within my 5'8" frame. Uh, it's but you know, at any rate, I shipped off to college, and I went to a small university uh, to wrestle Division 1 because that was kind of a thing I loved growing up was wrestling. And I got there, and it was in the bad old days when there was a lot of weight cutting going on.
Mhm.
And I remember I was sitting in a math class one day, and I was cutting down for some event, and I just couldn't do math effectively. I
Mhm.
was so dehydrated and so out of it. I was like, this can't be. This is not a good fit right now. I'm in college, and even if I like wrestling a lot more than I like college, which was the case because I was a fairly immature 18-year-old male.
Mhm.
The fact that I could not do math as well during the wrestling season as I could outside of it was a red flag.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, strangely enough, I have always been sports oriented, and uh, I always feel like the fullest expression of myself is like hanging on with two fingers, about to explode into flames. And so, um, as I was sitting there cutting weight one day on a bike, I was like, I'm doing like 3 hours a day of riding exercise bikes, and I kind of like this. And I can make the numbers go up
Yeah.
higher than most of the people around me. And I kind of need an out because I didn't love the college I was going to. It was, we'll just say, it was not religiously or educationally aligned with anything I wanted to do. And like a lot of 18-year-old kids, I got to college and was like, I did not choose correctly.
Yeah.
Um, so I started looking for a place to transfer to, and I got into cycling at the same time. And next thing I knew, 2 years later, I was doing much better in school, uh, more well hydrated, and I was racing bicycles, and that went on till I was, I don't know, 24, late 24. Um, and so I was doing it while I was in college on the national racing calendar. Some people would call it professional, some people would call it amateur, some people would call it a mix.
So
Um,
in 3 years or whatever, from the time you quit wrestling till the time you were cycling professionally, like you made that leap really fast. Most people
yeah,
cycle from the time they're like 8 or the time they can get on a bike, and then they hit the professional circuit like in their mid 20s, and you really shortened that time window.
yeah, but I mean, I was extremely good in college, like as college riders go, and then as people on the national racing calendar level go, I was very useful in a few specific applications because
Mhm.
it gets at that level, everyone is good. Everyone is on top of their nutrition. Everyone is on top of everything. You're weighing your food. You're getting macro and micronutrients. You're getting sleep. You're taking ice baths. You're doing all these crazy things. Altitude training. Blah 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 blah. The like, you can never do enough. And um, my VO2 max was 70.2, which is very, very good. But uh, there are people who are in the mid 70s, low 80s. And so I was very good, but not as good as I wanted to be. And, I always tried to do things the right way. I didn't use any untoward methods, which were kind of common back in the day.
Bravo.
But
Yeah.
but even if I had used those, I was in no danger of like, so I wanted a top 10 at a national racing calendar race, and I got 11th, 12th, 13th. I double digit times. It was infuriating. Uh, and so, that's a thing where you you have to, and that was doing everything right. Um, and so sometimes you have to grow up and realize that the writing's on the wall, and I was very good. I wasn't great. And that
Yeah.
was hard for me to swallow. And you know, but I remember the day I decided I was done, I went on this, you know, it was a particularly miserable day in late December. I was riding in cold rain. It was like a 6 hour ride. I was, eating mud and gravel off the road for I don't know how many hours. And I just was like, I don't think that they're. and I was 24 or whatever. So yes, I was going to get faster for a while. That's how endurance athletes work. But I just didn't want to restart my life at 38 as a cycling coach. Like
Yeah.
I didn't want to do one thing for the rest of my life, and I didn't. Uh, I was not good enough at that sport to make the decision to make that the rest of my life when I was 24.
Yeah.
Um, and looking back, great call. Good job, 24-year-old Mike. Like, way to have a modicum of maturity. But like at the same time, um, I don't think, yeah, like maybe I could have gotten to where I wanted. Like I think I would have eventually gotten inside the top 10, but without, doing some stuff and maybe compromising who I was, I don't think I would have hit my goals. And oh, by the way, if I had done some stuff, that's no guarantee because like I said, there are some natural talents out there that are just they're extraordinary. They've
Yeah.
been doing things for a long time. Maybe they have a head for positioning, whatever. Just the fullest extent of my efforts was not where I wanted to be, and it was time to move on. And so I decided to cook.
So,
Um,
were you in the Bay Area at that point when you
no,
decided to quit cycling?
I was living out of Athens, Georgia. It's like a small cycling community. It's cool because there's a downtown scene, but also you can be in the middle of nowhere and ride yourself unconscious and then like limp back into the city and
REM will be on the radio.
do all your yeah, or at your local grocery store.
Right.
Uh
Because REM is
them.
from there, right?
No, yeah. REM Neutral Milk Hotel is one of my favorites from there.
Yeah.
There are a couple artists out of Athens. The Wigs. There's a good music scene there too. Yeah, I'm wearing a Flaming Lips shirt as I as I do this
Hmm.
interview. But yeah, so that was cool, but it got to a point where I was just like, I got to grow up because I had seen the archetype like 38-year-old, 40-year-old, 42, 44-year-old cycling coach who was like living their dream, like living out of a Honda Accord, going to races, racing like masters events and
Yeah.
coaching a lot of cyclists. And that,
Wasn't your dream.
well, I just didn't, I hated traveling every weekend too. That sucks. Like you go from one hotel to another, to another, to another. You're not in the same place for any more than 3 days at a time for I don't know how many years.
Yep.
So, and like forcing yourself to sleep at a certain time and awake at another time. And it's not what I wanted. And so I had to grow up. And so I decided it was time to get a legitimate job. And like, boy, did I give restaurants more credit than they deserve. But
So walk us through a little bit like, okay, you make this decision to change your life entirely. I mean, what does that look like? Do you go to the local restaurant,
um,
down the street and say, "Hey, I want to learn how to cook"?
yes. So there was a restaurant. So I had to totally swallow my pride. I got rid of my apartment in Athens. I moved back in with my parents for 6 months, which was super cool at 25 years old. I recommend that to everyone. Go do that right now. It's awesome. Uh, no, but I was cognizant of the fact that I was a meme, and so I wanted out of that as fast as possible. So I took a job at a restaurant that no longer exists anymore, but it was basically a French fine dining steakhouse type thing. It had just opened uh, a couple weeks prior. The food for the area and the time period was good, and they were willing to let a functionally useless person traipse around in their kitchen for 60 hours a week for free. Like the legality of that is fuzzy at best, but here we are. Um, and I learned how to do all kinds of things I should have never been exposed to because I had no business
Like
getting
what?
to like make stocks and sauces or butcher fish or do any of that stuff. I like hardly knew how to hold a knife, and they're like, "Here you go, kid. This is the Super Bowl."
Yeah.
Like, and like any new restaurant, it was wildly up and down in reservations. Some nights we would do 100, some nights we would do 12, and we had the same like three people. Uh, I learned how to make souffles out of fear. Uh, like they
I'm gonna
showed,
call that determination. I have this
yeah.
really strong sense that you are a determined guy. You run a restaurant which is at a very high quality. You've been doing it for years, like through all the insanity of the pandemic. So I believe in your determination.
Yeah, I feel like when things are really bad is when I'm at my best, because things are really bad for everyone, but when they're really bad for everyone. But the thing is, if you take a deep breath and you do the next thing as well as you can, that's as that is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
And if you have the you know if you can pull your head together enough to do that, if it's hard for everyone,
Yeah.
then we're all in the same playing field here. Like, the pandemic was the pandemic for everybody, but our business grew during that time.
Mhm.
um, I locked down a permanent space in at the end of 2021 when everybody was sure that that next strain of COVID was going to come back and kill us all.
Mhm.
I reached out to a friend of mine who's an epidemiologist, and he was like, "No, definitely not going to." And I was like, "Cool, I'm going to sign this lease." He's like, "Great." And so I got a great lease at a great price, and you know, like was like, "All right, let's get after it. It's time
Let's
to like,
do it.
yeah." Um,
Now, okay, we skipped over a little bridge because I want to get to what you're doing at Anomaly, but how did you get from not knowing how to butcher a fish? First of all, how'd you get to the Bay Area? Did you go to
uh,
culinary school?
Yeah, so I came, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I need to go to either Johnston and Wales or Culinary Institute of America, and I looked at where campuses were, and since I had been what they, again, I'm not claiming any professional athleticism here. PR firms have claimed that for me for like a decade at this point, so I guess I'm riding with it. But anyhow, I got uh, quite a few dollars in scholarship money, having already had a 4-year degree from Auburn University, and then a good bit more for being what they classified as a professional athlete, and then a good bit more for a couple other things. And then I tested out of every academic class they had. Um, so uh, that saved all of a sudden, CIA was looking downright almost affordable. Uh, and and so I was like, okay, that's what we're doing. And I saw like frozen tundra, New York or California.
Yeah,
And
so there's two
that,
campuses we should say. Hyde Park
yeah,
has one like just north of Westchester across the Hudson River, and
yeah,
then there's one in Napa Valley.
yeah. And the World Geological Survey uh, lists where I grew up as a temperate rainforest. So I'm going to let you guess why I came to California. Like, I got to Napa Valley and was like, it's a little cold here, but we can work with this.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a chill.
Yeah, yeah. So New York was not going to be an option, and a lot of the Johnston and Wales places were, like Maine, and I was like, absolutely not. Under no circumstances am I going to be in Maine or Rhode Island during the winter. Like, that sucks. No, thank you. So I ended up out here.
Now I
Um,
really know you're a Southerner.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It just I like the warm weather. Like, San Francisco would be great. They just need to turn the thermostat up by like 15 degrees and discover central air conditioning, and we'll off to the races.
Well,
Uh
you should clarify that that's in July when it's fog season and it's like 50 degrees outside.
yeah,
Yeah.
the coldest winter of my life was summer in San Francisco, right?
Yep, there you
Uh
go.
I think that's Mark Twain. And
Well, so called. Yeah, I mean, who knows, but
yeah, he said a lot of things that he didn't say probably. Uh but Yeah, so I got out here and I started going to culinary school, and I was like, this is cool. I need to learn more. And then I got the bill for the first little bit, and I was like, this is expensive. Um, Still, with lots and lots of scholarship money. I'm not going to go into how much, but about as much as you can get.
yeah,
Uh, and I'm looking at this going like, wow, this is a lot. So I started working in the special events unit there to make money, and I did that for a little while, and then I realized that because I was at this culinary school, I had access to Michelin-starred kitchens that I certainly did not belong in, and I was not going to let that stop me.
yeah.
So
Back to the
I
determination.
yeah, well, I would go to school from like 6 to 2, and then I would work from like 3 to midnight. And I would do that 6 days a week. And I also somehow found a way to get like an hour of cardio in every day. That's another thing. My routine never changes. I, yeah, run and lift and do that sort of thing every day and have since I was like 10. It's just kind of part of my life. But um, I got I was exposed to some great kitchens. And so I was also doing 90 hours a week in kitchens while I was in culinary school. So I would go to work and I would get my head kicked in and just do everything I could not to get fired. And then I would go to school, and school was hard at first. But then once you've worked in one of those restaurants, just like to be useful enough not to lose your job, you're excellent compared to what's required at culinary school. So all of a sudden, I would show up to class and my uniform was garbage and my recipes weren't written and my cooking was way better than it had ever been before. And it was definitely from the working that I did to pay for the school,
Yeah,
which is a crazy thought.
but
And I
normal.
and I don't know that I would recommend that to anyone else. And I don't know that you know I know I am on the permanent banned list of some chef instructors there due to like lack of coherent uniform for prolonged periods of time. Um,
So, Mike, how did you get then from that experience where you're staging and, working at these Michelin-starred restaurants? What's the journey then from that to opening your own restaurant?
um, the journey is rough. The journey is not always win all the time. So um, I graduated from culinary school and I took a job at Le Toque in Napa
Hmm.
as a fish cook, and then they needed to bring me along to do two or three other things on stations that I wasn't ready for, and I straight up got fired. 6 months out of culinary school after working in Michelin-starred kitchens for 18 months and being successful. First setback. Just boom, canned, done. Like I didn't love it there either, but um I was not that upset, but also it was kind of a shock. And I was like, all right, you've been punched in the face. Now what do you do?
Right.
And so, I took a day to lick my wounds and then I started applying to other places. And I looked around in the valley at the time and there was the laundry in Meadowood. Single Thread didn't exist. Enclos didn't exist.
Yeah.
A bunch of other really great restaurants that are there right now didn't exist. So the games in town were kind of Auberge, which I had done, Terra, which I had done, Soul Bar, which I had done. Because back then, Soul Bar and Auberge were in the same family. Then they divorced and now they're back.
Right.
Uh, so I just kind of worked across those two properties for them for a year. Um, Etoile still had a restaurant there. It was the Domaine Chandon, like Michelin 1-star restaurant. Perry, I want to say his last name was Hoffman. I liked his food a lot, and I interviewed there, and the timeline just didn't work out, and then that restaurant ended up closing 6 months
That was
later.
the shed, right?
No, no, he went to the shed after there,
Oh,
which
okay.
was really strange because he was making like, effervescent sea urchin foam, and then he was doing a chalkboard menu like 9 months later. And don't get me wrong, both were good, and that guy's a great chef. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And Healdsburg was uh, the it wasn't what it is now. Like now, it's a culinary mecca, and I'm not saying it was bad back then, but I'm saying what I was specifically looking for was not offered there at
Yeah.
that time. Um, the other thing I was looking at was Meadowood, and I feel like for me that wouldn't have been a cultural fit. Um, and also, I just kind of needed to get the hell out of Napa.
Yeah. It's a small
I
place.
well, it's great. It's just um, it wasn't what I was looking for, and I had kind of done that for 3 or 4 years, and I decided I wanted to give San Francisco a try, and so that ended up being one of the best experiences I had. So I went and staged at a bunch of places. I ended up landing at Spruce, which had a Michelin star back then. Menu was super ambitious for the number of people we were cooking for. They were doing a bunch of little special projects. Um, the chefs there, that kitchen ended up being incredible. So John Madriaga is now the Vino Enoteca corporate chef. He took kind of a left turn, fell in love with pizza, so
Hmm.
that's what he does now. Orlando Pagan was the executive sous chef. He has a restaurant called Wild Common now in Charleston that just won a Michelin star, which is super awesome. Ricky Odbert, who is the sous chef there, is the chef owner of Six Test Kitchen in San Luis Obispo. That has a star.
Hmm.
My friend Juan Regao is now the CDC at Selby's. That has a star.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah. Shirley, who is one of our line mates, was a sous chef at Aquarello. She did some stuff uh, in LA at a couple of really, really cool restaurants there. So I would just go home every night and I was like, why am I so bad at this? Um, and it turns out I wasn't. It's just I was it like for a restaurant like that to have that caliber of people at one time is unique. Like
Mhm.
it to be fair, the menu we were executing did not need that. It did not require that level of expertise. I just happened to like trip and fall into uh an especially uh great
Super
team.
talented.
Yeah, yeah. And so I it was awesome for me because it was just like every day I'm trying to keep up. Like, our there was a woman named Izzy Farley. She came to us from Mamo, which I think was number one or two restaurant in the world on the world's 50 best last year, I want to say. She's back in Ireland now,
The last
doing
year you
really,
were at Spruce, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
doing really cool things.
because
Just
you
like,
haven't been there for a while.
no, no, no. I was there for 18 months.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was like, this is awesome. I got fast on the line. um the high volume, like get your head kicked in thing was really good for me. I think I needed that. It forces more organization. I think it's a really good foundation for a cook. Um so then I wanted to get into some more delicate stuff. And so I went to Comey in Oakland, and that was not a cultural fit at all.
With
I
James.
love Yeah, I love James, and I love his food, and I love that restaurant. I did not love working there.
Yeah.
I was living out of a lady's attic in Piedmont. It was a whole miserable thing. Um, Oakland chewed me up and spit me out. I had no money. It was just not fun, and it was not a fit, and it was not the right call. And
Mhm.
I'm grateful for it because, like, I bounced from highly unsuccessful thing to super successful tenure to highly unsuccessful thing again. And so, um, my theory in sports, at least, is the reason you travel to big competitions is because if you can beat everybody in your local area, you don't know what you need to work on, right?
Right.
So if you go to a national tournament, short of winning, you're going to lose. And you can either come up with excuses for why you lost, or you can review that tape and figure out, like, as far as wrestling is concerned, it's like, okay, my right leg defense is garbage, or like, I need to be more aggressive, or I'm not good at hand fighting, or I cut too much weight and I was lethargic and I got tired, or, there's 1,000 things like that.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm
uh,
sure it's true with chefing too.
yeah, I mean, Comey was great for me because that's where I learned you have got to have your life outside of the restaurant absolutely dialed uh, to be successful in the restaurant. And I wasn't going out and partying or anything, like far from it, but like I was not set up to be successful. Um, and, after a while, I was just like, I think I'm done here. Um, and so, about at the end of that, my old executive sous chef from Auberge called me up and he was like, hey, we're closing the CIA restaurant and I need a sous chef. It'll be 6 months. You can have half of the dishes on the menu, and you can, you have freedom to fail. Like, try some things.
Yeah.
Like, no one cares. This is literally dead 6 months from now to the day. I'll pay you this much. We'll only work 50 hours a week. You can work more if you want. Um, and I would like to get a chance to work with you again. And I was like, this is really cool. And that chef's name is Todd Meyerhofer. He is the best chef you've never heard of. He's He's really good at a lot of things, exceptionally good at Italian cuisine, despite his German last name. Uh, his wife, Miriam, is Italian. I think, if I remember correctly, they have a little place in Portland now. She's the front of house, and he is running the kitchen. But
Oh, that's
anyhow,
good.
yeah, it was exceptional to get to work with him and to like have the opportunity to grow again into the like I left Comey like beat up and pretty upset and wasn't sure if I was going to cook anymore and like all this other stuff. It just, I have a different idea about restaurant cultures and the way a restaurant runs than most people. Um, and sometimes that makes me a bad fit, and that's fine.
So
You
how
know,
did you get from there then to opening your own restaurant? Because now you're in Oakland, you're across the bay. Now you're back in the North Bay.
yeah, well,
How'd you get back to the
there's
city?
more traveling. So, uh, uh, as as that restaurant winds down, I took a job at Bird Dog as a sous chef, and I was there for
Palo
about
Alto?
18 months. Yeah, in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
So I had to see all the parts of the Bay Area, I guess, before I decided. And so went there. That was cool. Um, I really loved the parts of it I loved and didn't like the parts of it I didn't like. And got to work with some really cool people and some people that I'd rather not work with again. It's like it was a restaurant.
Yeah.
I learned a ton. I had a lot more agency over what happened than I'd ever had before. Um, and and you learn pretty quickly, you need to learn how to manage people, because if it's a big restaurant, and at that time that was probably the nicest restaurant in Palo Alto because Protege didn't exist yet.
Hmm.
uh, a lot of the new really cool restaurants that just popped up this year didn't exist yet, so we were not the only game in town, but you know a big place. And so I was a good cook, but I was a terrible manager. And so that place pushed me to learn how to manage people. And you have all kinds of people. You have some people that are just straight up oppositional, some people that want to do it their way, some people that'll just do whatever you say. Um, and so you have to figure out how to get all three of those groups of people to do what you need.
Right.
And that was a hell of an experience, and I'm so grateful that I had it. And it was a hard place to work at the time, but I'm glad I did it, and I would put that in the success column. Unfortunately, the way I left there was less than ideal. So I had given them 6 weeks notice, because I tend to give a lot of notice when I'm going to leave a place, because I really, if it's somewhere where I enjoyed my time, I feel a lot of gratitude. So I gave a long period of time at Spruce, and I gave a long period of time at Bird Dog.
Hmm.
And the basically, I had a terrible accident and had a spinal compression fracture.
Mm.
Um, and it was pretty rough. I got to the hospital. The doctor was like, if this swells overnight, you're never going to walk again. And I decided that that was not going to be the case. My parents are, super supportive, so they were both sitting there in the hospital room, and my dad and I just kind of have an understanding. He's seen me break all kinds of bones racing bikes. He's seen some grisly stuff. My mom, on the other hand, was not in love with what was going on at the time.
Hmm.
Uh, and so the doctor had been kind of curt with me. They thought that I was, out free soloing without a rope or whatever, and fell and got lucky. I unfortunately just passed out on the top of a climbing wall. I responsibly finished the climb, passed out, and fell poorly in an unconscious manner, and woke up with a broken back. And so, yeah. Long story short, I didn't take too kindly to that. So they were like, okay, you need to go to x-rays. So I got up and walked to x-rays, and they did not love that at all, but it made my mom laugh. And that was all that mattered to me at the time. The only thing in my world that mattered was that she felt okay. So um, I had about 6 weeks of recovery there. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, found the end of the internet, and there was a chef there from Finland named Sasu Laukkanen who had this video where he was like, "I want to teach the next generation of chefs how to, start their own fine dining restaurant, like, small, scrappy fine dining restaurant. I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. So I jokingly, very good naturedly trolled him. And I was like, all right, chef, when do I get there? And he gave me a date and I was like, cool, where do I stay? And he sent me a very benevolent, sarcastic link to Airbnb. And I booked an Airbnb and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to Finland. Uh, wow. I guess this is the thing we're doing. And so, with a slightly compromised back, I was good-ish. I flew to Finland, and worked really, really hard there for a couple weeks. The main thing I wanted to see is I wanted to see if I was like whole enough and like ready to be able to work hard in a restaurant for 12, 14, 16 hours a day and be good to go. And I found out really quickly that I was, which was cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And so was
and
the restaurant north of the Arctic Circle by any chance?
it was close. It was cold. I went in February. That was poorly planned. We had like 4.5 hours of daylight. I don't like cold weather.
Yeah.
And it became a running joke with the staff because I would get up early every morning to do an hour on the treadmill because you were not running outside in February in
Right.
Finland. You can't breathe the air. It's so
So,
cold, much less like exercise. So I would do that, shower, put a hat on, and walk to work. And inevitably, I'd take the hat off and my hair was frozen vertical. And they just laugh and laugh and laugh. But they were super good natured. I was only there for a short time, but I learned a huge amount, and I also had like gained back the confidence in my body that I could still
but
really grind,
yeah.
which was important.
Yeah.
So got back stateside and interviewed at like 30 different places, got a bunch of job offers, probably pissed off more than 10 people if I had to guess by not taking the job that they offered me.
Yeah.
Um, I just, for whatever reason, found fault with all these restaurants that are great. Like some of these chefs I'm friends with now.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't take the job because something didn't feel right. And I kind of realized I was unemployable. Uh, like I had ideas about how I wanted to run something, and it was going to be a disservice to me and whoever I worked for if I tried to do it their way.
So did you
Um,
go out and raise a bunch of funds, or what did you end up having to
no,
do?
I did the dumbest possible thing. I was like, I'm having a pop-up, and I advertised it on Eventbrite, which no one is on. Like, if you're looking for a rave, maybe Eventbrite works, but definitely not like a 8-course pop-up tasting menu. So the first event was just fell flat. No one showed up. I don't know that you can call it canceled because no one had interest. Um, and so that was pretty depressing. So I
You're
licked
like,
my
I
wound.
need PR.
Yeah, I licked my wounds for a week and was like, this is awful. So then I kind of started learning about social media a little bit,
Mhm.
and we did the next one, and there were like 14 people, and 14 was an exponential number more than zero. Uh, and we did as good a job as could be expected for $47 or whatever it was.
So when you
Um,
say we, did you have a business partner?
yeah, his name was Jose Regal. He is his gift, like, don't get me wrong, he was good at what we were doing, but his like incredible gift is systems across multiple restaurants. So he's with the Proposition Chicken Group right now, running things, opening new stores, like setting records. He stops by every now and then with like a coffee that he's brewed from his house and whatever, and we talk, and he's doing he's doing so well. He's also hilarious. And the CDC at Selby's, Juan, who I mentioned earlier
Mhm.
from Spruce,
Yeah,
is
and
his
CDC
brother.
is chef de cuisine, we should say,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
those who don't know. CDC means chef de cuisine.
Yeah, so basically I still hang out with those guys anytime I get a spare second. They're hilarious and great and gregarious and like really good people. Uh but yeah, so he's off doing that now. I bought him out. It was a little contentious at first, just like that always is, but we're good friends now, and I can't say enough good things about the guy, and I'm grateful he was there for the startup because he filled the gaps that I very obviously had at 30 or whatever when I was, yeah,
Yeah.
anyhow. So we got that off the ground. It built up, and then it got to a point where I was doing 2 cooking classes a week, a cooking class on Friday, a cooking class on Saturday, and then a pop up on Sunday. The cooking classes were minimal prep and big profit. The pop up was maximal prep and low profit. So I was kind of running a thing where I would get people to, come to the cooking class, and I would tell them about the pop up for the whole cooking class in hopes that they would pay me to learn to cook so I could advertise to them so they could pay me again and come eat my food on Sunday,
Yeah.
because Sunday was what I really cared about. But I poured everything I had into Friday and Saturday to make sure that, we had a good reputation, and also it's where I got most of the money for the restaurant, frankly, was teaching cooking classes.
Hmm.
Um and so
So,
then
Mike, was this at the pop-up stage? Was this where you first came up with your emoji egg? I think that's the dish you're probably
yeah,
best known for is your
yeah,
emoji egg.
it's it's kind of hilarious. Yeah, so
Can you describe that for people, like how you came up with the idea and why it has such staying power?
yeah, I mean, to be really honest, Jose was trolling me. He was like, "Okay, chef, we need a signature egg dish." And everything we do at Anomaly is so wonky. I needed an egg dish that was mostly not an egg.
Yeah.
So I came up with this really savory potato foam, and originally I wanted it to be bacon, but then we had so many pescatarians that I got frustrated.
Welcome
So
to the Bay Area.
yeah, it's a super super concentrated dashi, so it eats like bacon because it's smoky and savory, um, but it's pescatarian, so we're kind of good to go there. And for vegetarians, we just smoke the potatoes. But anyhow, it's a potato foam, a little puffed rice at the bottom, and then an egg yolk jam in the middle, and it looks like an egg. And it's an egg, but it's not an egg, but it's an egg. It looks like an egg, so it's an egg. There's egg yolk jam in it, so it's an egg. But also, most of it is potato, so it's not an egg. So it's perfectly Anomaly. It's us. It's ridiculous. It's very technical. Um, it appears like we've not done much to the product, but we're only manipulating potatoes, egg, and rice, but we've done 17 things to each of them.
Hmm.
Um, and people seem to really like it. We tried to take it off the menu at one of the pop-ups, and a guest that had been at one of the prior pop-ups was livid, and they were like, "I'm not leaving until I get the egg snack." And I was like, "This is ridiculous, but okay." So while we're in service, we're like making this egg snack. And the first seating sat until we fed the egg snack to the second seating, and that was their last course. So they sat all the way through dessert, skipped to the opening snack again, and then the second snack was the egg snack. So they all ate that and left. And
Now, I guess if you've never been to Anomaly, we should take a moment to explain that Anomaly is a very particular kind of restaurant now, where you have, I would call it very modern cuisine, where you change the menu every day, where you have very technical touches on many of the dishes, like you were just explaining, especially on the emoji egg. And to ask a chef to make this dish a la minute is, I'm just gonna say it, it's rude.
nah, it's fine. Like something we've discovered is, it's hospitality. If you can do something to make someone happy,
Hmm.
that's how you're winning. I'm too old to cure cancer. I'm not going to get there in that field. It's too late for me, sadly. But I can create a really excellent environment where that person can escape from the weight of the world that is, doing whatever lab research they're doing. And I can be their 2.5 hour lunch break. And it's a really fancy lunch break, and they can reset with their partner or their friends, or by themselves while reading a book, or however they want to come eat. And
Well, chef, that is very nice of you to say that that is not above and beyond, but that is above and beyond.
yeah, we that's kind of our brand. If we can do it, we do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, now, don't get any ideas, people. Sometimes we can't do it. Uh, but uh, but we really do try to accommodate as many things as we can.
Yeah.
So that's an important touch for us. Um,
And I will
is
say on the emoji egg, so when I was in, because I can't do egg or dairy, you created an egg that it was almost like visually the reverse of the typical emoji egg.
oh
So,
yeah.
yeah.
We uh we did a smoked carrot foam, I think.
Hmm.
We mess around with carrots and beets in that way sometimes. Um, we have jokingly in the past done a green egg for vegans out of avocado.
Yep.
Uh, it's just like whatever is delicious and in the same spirit of that kind of is what really lands for us. Most people are pretty reasonable,
Yeah.
and if they have dietary restrictions and they can see that you really went above and beyond to try and accommodate them, you can, make a friend for life there. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're trying to do. All of the, you know, there all of the articles and awards and whatnot, those are great, but at the end of the day, you can't live in or eat those.
No.
But you can live in a house that you buy with money, and you can eat food that you buy with money.
Right.
So if you're business minded at all, you come to the realization that it makes sense to accommodate as many people as possible.
Within
Like I
the realm
said,
of reality. Yes.
yeah, like I said, we can't always do it. If you're
With
a
advance notice preferred.
Yeah, if you're a gluten-free vegan that can't eat ginger or
Right.
garlic or peanuts, then we can't do that. But
Please give me 48
yeah,
hours notice.
yeah. But if you're one of those three things, we can probably figure that out.
Right.
Um,
Well,
so,
and to your testament, you ran the pop-up for what,
5 years.
5 years?
Five. Yeah, it was a brutal campaign. It was so hard.
I
Uh,
didn't realize it was that long.
yeah, the worst part was we were running the pop-up while we were building out the space. Because so all the money is mine outright. I don't have any investment.
Hmm.
Um, and so we had to stay in the black while we were doing a pop-up and building a restaurant. So I would go there in the morning, then I would go to the pop-up space, which thank God was also on Sutter Street, just a mile down the road at the mansion on Sutter,
Yep.
and
Beautiful.
work there for 12 or 13 hours. And then we'd come back to the main restaurant, and for a while we didn't even have power, so we're like crawling around in there with flashlights, 15 hours after we had been there the first time, trying to figure out what happened. And then you like look up into the ceiling and you're like, oh my god, they installed the chandelier in the right corner of the room. Like, why would you do that? So then you're like, all right, well, I have to get back here tomorrow morning before they like make this a permanent thing. And oh, it was so hard. And then we our last pop-up was no like the end of November,
Hmm.
with the idea we're open in like December 10. And that was brutal too, because so we get all the stuff out of that space and in U-Hauls, and we're ready to move in, and we just can't get through permitting. We just dropped an anchor for 30 days.
Mm.
So we have everything we own in these U-Hauls,
Mm.
and there's nowhere to put it. We're not going to put it in the place I live because there's not enough room. We have nowhere to go with it. So we renegotiate with the truck rental company. I don't remember if it was U-Haul or who, at a like 15-day rate, and we're essentially moving these two U-Hauls full of everything we own
Yeah.
around this block, trying to find two U-Haul sized parking spots within 3 blocks of the restaurant for like 15 days. It was a total disaster.
Mm.
And so then we get to where we can at least load those out and start setting things up, and we're like, okay, great, it's going to be great. And then we failed uh, a plumbing inspection because the plumber forgot to cap two things, and he said something snarky to the inspector, so they threw the book at him, and we couldn't get a plumbing inspector back for like 12 days.
Oh God.
uh, so we're just sitting there lighting money on fire for however long. We finally got open January 13th.
Hmm.
So that was probably the hardest phase of the pop-up was like we're
No income coming in.
yeah, well, we're also starting to really like the last bit of it, we're starting to really get traction because we had announced a permanent space, and now
Right.
people are like trying to get a preview and see, how it's going to stack up against the main or the new brick and mortar. And we probably could have done a great December had we known we had a December to do. Um, but instead, we're making a campfire with dollar bills. Uh, and so,
I
that
can
was
laugh
rough.
now.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine now, but I remember like month one, we were like, this better be a good month because if it's not, it might be our only month.
Yeah.
And thank God we were fortunate enough to basically be in the black slash break even since the outset of things, and it's been nice. We've become much more successful now than we were then,
Well,
but we were,
congratulations.
yeah, successful enough to continue, which was kind of the goal at the beginning.
So, how
um
long have you been at it now? How long have you been in the space, not the mansion space, which is the rental space, but in your permanent space on the corner of Lyon and Sutter?
um we have been in our Sutter space for 3 years and a couple months at this point. We did pop-ups for 5 years in 12 different spaces, including like three different takeout locations in 2020 and whatever else. Uh, so all told, we're coming up on like 8 years now with and we're 3 years into the brick and mortar, and we still have more time that was the pop-up. So just to let you know how much fun that was. Uh,
Well,
you
Mike, I
know,
think you have a book in you. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah.
detail that I know we haven't had time to cover, but wow, there's so much story there. So it's been just a great experience to have this chat with you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's been super fun. It's you don't realize what you've been through until you recall it all in 30 minutes or whatever.
Yes.
It's it's kind of I think the way we did our thing is unique. I think the small privateer restaurant with no outside investment is probably dead or dying.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just incredibly grateful to have been surrounded by people that supported me through this. I could not have done this alone. And it just was, yeah, it was a great experience. And I don't think I'd have the guts to do it again. I don't know, knowing what I know now, but I'm glad I did it.
Well, and your food is just incredible. I think it's really worth showing up for. I mean, even you're there all the time, obviously, but your team really knows how to execute to your ideas, and it you can taste it in every dish.
Yeah, we very much focus. So my sporting background has been helpful. I'm kind of a player coach. At some point, I'll get old enough that I can't play anymore and I just have to coach.
Hmm.
I'll just design the food and then be like, all right, good luck, guys. Um, but, right now I'm still useful on the line sometimes and in other aspects, still prep a good bit in the kitchen. I still cook. Um, but what I try to coach is don't look at it as we have 45 covers tonight, so we're fully sold out, or we have a bunch of dietary restrictions, or we have a bunch of dietary restrictions and we're sold out. Look at it as do the next thing as well as you can until there are no things left to do. That that takes that big scary number and it makes it fractional.
Yep.
And if you really enjoy cooking, then the next thing you have to do is cook, a perfect steak or whatnot, or perform some kind of perfect technical emulsion. That's something you want to do anyway. So you should be excited about that. So
Yeah.
it takes fear and flips it into excitement.
That's a skill that can be learned, but it takes time.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
try to look at challenges as opportunities to excel and show how good we are,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh no, we have three vegans. It's like, well, if we can create a vegan menu that's as good as the normal menu, then we're getting close to the mastery of our craft that we desire.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're going back to that hospitality idea that you mentioned before, where you're really pleasing each and every customer in the way that makes sense for them.
yeah, I would say what we do really hits with like 98 or 99% of our customers. We're the beneficiary of some really lovely reviews, which, feels nice. But, at the end of the day, you're not going to please everyone. But what, what really helps me sleep at night is I know that we're giving maximal effort in every interaction.
Mhm.
And so I know we're realizing the goal is to realize as much of our potential as we have.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we try to approach every day.
Yeah. And every day you'll be doing the emoji egg.
Yeah. For the rest of my natural life, it appears.
Well, that is until everyone has a chance to try it. It's worth coming just to give that dish a try. You have what, 8 courses currently on your tasting menu?
We're currently at 10,
10.
sometimes 11.
Hmm.
It just depends on the season. Sometimes each course will be multiple plates. Sometimes each course is just one plate. Um, I'm a big believer in only doing as many courses as you have interesting things to say. I don't want to ever be a tasting menu where we're like, well, we have to do 21 courses, so we'll take these three off. Those will be theory courses. They're not necessarily delicious, but I'm going to throw a bunch of food words at you so you're intimidated into liking them. That sucks.
Don't do
We're not
that.
going to do
Please
that.
don't do
Yeah,
that.
right.
Just keep the creativity flowing.
Yeah, but that exists, right? And so sometimes there's a limit to the creativity, or there's a limit to the season, or there's a limit to the products available. And so, part of the reason we love tomatoes so much in the Bay Area is because you only get them during summer.
Yeah,
So, it's the menu should reflect that. And sometimes we have more to say, and sometimes we have less to say.
that's true. I do not want to eat a tomato out of season. It's true.
No, it's like a strange punishment.
Yeah. I think that's our grace note right there. I think we should wrap it up right here. Chef, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I can't wait to come back to Anomaly and see what you're doing for spring. Gosh, I can only imagine what's coming up.